Hello and thank you for joining me for this episode of Carl vs. Reality. As you can hear, the jet is going over my head, so I hope it's not going to be too loud. As always, trying to get a little bit of solitude. There's always something. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I've sort of come to terms with, the fact that no matter where I go, there's always going to be some sort of interruption or something. I used to record my podcast in my bedroom, and the immersion heater used to always kick in when I was recording. I used to do like a weekly radio show at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, and the immersion heater would always kick in. But there we go, can't be helped. So I wanted to start this episode really, and just as a quick little aside, I want to just say I'm not trying to preach to anybody here. I just want to just talk about some of the things I've been up to and why I'm up to them and all that kind of thing. Just because. So, as I've banged on about this the last few episodes, I do apologise, but I'm just sort of finding my feet online a bit, and the fact that I'm able to create my podcast and blogs and all that kind of stuff on my own space, on my own terms, has actually been really lovely, and it's actually been an eye-opening experience, really, being able to just post and do it intentionally. I'm not going to sort of start talking about intentional living, because a lot of those people come across as like very preachy. I don't want to come across as preachy, but as an example, like when I was thinking about getting web hosting and all that kind of stuff, I researched into the companies to see what would be a good company to use, like what was the most green, I wanted one that's local to me, something in the UK, and all this kind of thing. I was very conscientious of all that kind of stuff. I want to intentionally work out what is the best company for me to use on a green level, an ethical level, and all that kind of thing. And it's just one of those things that I thought I want to make sure that I'm doing what I can do. And then I started thinking to myself, well, okay, so how can I, intentionally create a podcast that is not terrible for the environment? And there's all that kind of stuff to it. Like, apparently if I have the file in mono and all that kind of stuff, that makes a bit of a difference. And, where does it stop, all this stuff? Like, where can I, how intentional can I be with things? And ultimately, at the end of the day, I was like, well, it is literally a drop in the ocean, really, isn't it? Anything I do, it's a drop in the ocean. Because there's me trying to, conscientiously not be bad for the environment online, and then there's just these massive data centers chugging along, churning out AI slop and all that. It's mad. And I like the idea of having my little space online, my little campsite of my website is basically there, literally sitting in a tree, doing nothing, or as little as I can, to hurt the environment. And I'm enjoying doing that, and I'm that's one of the things that I've enjoyed, especially with this podcast, because this podcast has changed since I started making it last year, and it's become something that it used to be my old podcast, because I used to basically just sit somewhere and just talk about crap. But it used to be in my room, and now I'm just out and about recording my thoughts as they are. And there's a few other bits that I've been doing as well, because I'm just I'm finding all this new music online and all that kind of thing, which is, I'm enjoying that so much. Like, there's just so much music out there that isn't on Spotify and all that. And to the point where actually I now have an MP3 player, which is quite a fun experience. It's sort of going back in technology and all that. Oh, we're one of those intentional people that go back to using analog stuff like MP3 players and tape recorders. Yeah, well, yes, but not really. For me personally, it makes sense to have an MP3 player for that music, because my phone isn't particularly good for storage, and I don't really want to start downloading stuff. And I also don't want to stream that much music on my phone. I don't really like the idea of streaming a lot of music, because, again, there's a data center that isn't visible to me and is actually sort of churning away and all that kind of thing. So it makes sense for me to just basically use streaming music a bit less, because it is, a data center is whirring away somewhere. And again, me not using it is a drop in the ocean but it's my intentional decision to not use the data centers as much. It's actually, it's been really funny because like I've been finding this new music and all that kind of stuff. At the minute, there's a band that I got recommended to me on the Fediverse, and a band called Sordid Amok. I think it's Sordid Amok. Love them. Listen to them a lot. They're very good music to have on, and they just sort of fill me with a bit of oomph to create and all that, which has been really lovely. They're not on Spotify. And I bought their album on Bandcamp, and they've got the money for it. So that's, for me, that's an intentional decision to go out and buy music for an independent artist or artists. And what's really funny though, because like I bought this MP3 player, and I'm all like, okay, fine. So I've got this independent music and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I've actually bought loads of MP3s over the years, because back in the early days, you'd buy music for, on iTunes, and you'd buy music on like 7 Digital and all these other different places where you can buy music. And I've got loads of these MP3s just knocking about, and so I thought, right, okay, I dug out my old external hard drive, and hey presto, I've got all my music collection back. And I was like, I bought that. There's literally, I think there's a couple of thousand songs on this this MP3 collection that I've got. And it's been just really weird sort of thinking, I remember buying this, I remember this song in ages. Because that was when like you'd put things on shuffle, and it's been really fun sort of having an MP3 player to listen to, because it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain it. And just knowing that I'm not sort of using a data center, it's actually quite nice. But at the same time, like I said, it's a small, tiny thing that I'm doing intentionally for me. It's not. I'm not saying everyone go out and buy an MP3 player. Everyone starts buying all the songs on Bandcamp, this, that, and the other. It's people just have to carve their own path with this kind of thing. It's quite a fun little thing when you start doing things because you want to do them, not because some guy who yells at you on YouTube tells you to do it. Because the AI stuff, it's crazy, like how it's being utilised as like a entertainment thing. Like, I want to make this funny picture of such and such, and then that you're sat in your room thinking of a funny image, and then a few seconds later, pop this funny image. Look at that funny picture. You don't want to print that picture out. You don't want to use that picture for anything apart from, well, nothing really, are you? That cost energy somewhere. That's now created a part of a bigger problem. It's like a tiny little speck in a huge mountain of carbon footprint, but it's there. Creating one of those little 8-second videos on Gemini, just a silly video that's 8 seconds long, not long enough to be of any worth, nothing really sort of, at least Vine was creative some way. An AI created video that lasts 8 seconds is the equivalent of boiling a kettle. So that's literally like boiling a kettle. And imagine all these kettles just boiling. You can't hear the kettle boiling because you're sat in your room in a nice air-conned house, and just you sat there and you basically flicked on a kettle pretty much somewhere else, and this carbon footprint now exists. And the thing is, like I say, there's nothing that we can do as individuals to change these things. But if we just choose not to do those things, if it aligns with your own ethics and your own intentionality, I don't know what the word is, that's fine. Again, not preaching if you want to do that. That's up to you. As an example, I'm not a vegan, but I'm a vegetarian. I will never buy like battery farm eggs, because that's just a little thing. You vote with what you buy. Okay, they're still not the most ethical things to eat. Then a lot of things aren't, but let's not go into this right now. But just by not buying the battery farmed cheap eggs, it's something, isn't it? I believe that they are a lot happier than the battery farmed ones, even though those things have improved. It's still not enough, but yeah, it's a strange one. There's so many ethics and stuff involved with things, but intentional living is something that people should maybe experiment with, because it's quite a fun thing to do, really. To think about, like, okay, what do I believe in? What can I do to back that up, and what actions can I take to live a life that is intentional in that way? And the other thing also is, like, I'm not a person to follow rules. So if those intentions are setting up too many rules, I'll fuck it off. I ain't going to do it. I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, and it'll change because everyone changes. And it's a experience in life when you realise that you're never set. Like, every few years, your mind just changes, thinking, what was I thinking a few years ago, you know? If I think what I was up to 7 years ago, it's just a miles different. It's just so different. And experiences and just education and just the world as a whole just changes. So it's, it's an interesting thought anyway. And I'm waffling on here now, so, probably I should get going before I start singing stuff. How long we got? Hold on. 11 minutes of bullshit. Lovely. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this. Go check out carlversusreality.com, where there's a blog which I update occasionally. There's obviously the podcast page, and also a page dedicated to cats. You can also follow me on the Fediverse as well. They're on the old Mastodon. All the links are on there. So, until the next time, take care of yourselves and each other.